Join me as I tackle the struggles of being the oldest girl in the family or the only girl and see if I can navigate all this chaos while keeping my sanity intact. You see, growing up as the oldest girl or only girl in the family can be a unique experience, filled with its own set of challenges and advantages. On one hand, you're often expected to be a role model for your siblings, and that can be a heavy responsibility, but it can also be a great source of comfort. But on the other hand, you get to experience things that your siblings might not, and that can be a real privilege. A lot of oldest girls and only girls break their parents into parenting, and let me tell you, that is a tough job. For a lot of oldest girl or only girls, being the first to try everything is exhilarating. Whether it was getting into school, they had to go through that discomfort on their own, going to prom again, learning how to drive. They're always the guinea pig for the parents. The parents never know what they're doing, and they're always solicit her help to help co-parent because she's female. And let me tell you, it's not always easy. There were times when a lot of these women felt like they were flying blind with no guide, no support, and no mistakes could be made. They're looking left and right, and there's nobody there but themselves. Nobody having their back. Meanwhile, they're expected to give everything of themselves to everyone else in the family. Everyone. There were times when these women often felt like they had nobody to turn to. And the mistakes that they're made because they're the first or the only, the parents hold them to such a high standard that they're not even allowed to make them. And when they make them, they have so much shame and guilt about it, and they're so afraid of being a bad role model. But despite all these challenges, most oldest girls, most oldest or only girls, know a lot about leadership, resiliency, responsibility, being driven, being action-oriented, taking risks, doing the bold thing and doing it alone. They've battled a million wars by themselves. They don't need any help. They can figure all of that out by themselves because they've done it. And I think that's true for a lot of oldest girls and a lot of only girls out there. We may not realize it, but their unique position in the family gives them a very unique perspective of the world. It's a perspective where they're entirely self-reliant. So if you're an oldest girl and only girl and you know what I'm talking about, and if you're not, that's okay too. At least you got a glimpse into their crazy world. Either way, buckle up because it's going to be a wild ride. So one of my clients told me that when she was younger, her parents will always tell her to set a good example for her siblings, and she'll be like, why do I have to be the responsible one all the time? But now that she's getting older, she's starting to realize that being a role model wasn't just about being responsible. It was also about showing her siblings that they could be strong, that they could be independent, that they could be confident, they could pursue their dreams, they can be who they want to be in the world, and they don't need anybody to do it all by themselves. So being the oldest girl also means that you get to experience things that your siblings didn't. You got to go on college visits, you got to attend concerts, you got to travel abroad, and those experiences may have shaped you in ways that you're still discovering today. Of course, there were also times when you probably felt stuck in a never-ending cycle of babysitting and errands running and being responsible and being in charge and having to answer to somebody with nobody else to unload your mess on. I mean, God, who needs a social life when you're busy helping your siblings with their homework and helping your parents parent the children they made? Despite the frustration, oldest children in the family, oldest girls, and only girls are very important. And the strength that God has put in them is a type of strength that keeps going. It keeps going even when it's not convenient, even when it's tough. Many of them, as they get older, they've realized, looking back at their childhood, how much stronger they are, how much more resilient that they are, how much more capable, and how possible it is for them to fulfill whatever they desire. But being the oldest isn't always rainbows and unicorns. There are probably times when many of you feel like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. Time when you felt like, you were the only one who cared about your family's well-being because everybody's being selfish. Times when you felt like you were losing yourself in the process of taking care of everyone else. Many oldest children and only children are familiar with this feeling. And one of the biggest challenges that many of them face is dealing with the pressure of perfection. Either being a good role model for the sibling or being the only child that both parents get to critique at the same time. And that means, having to be perfect all the time in order to keep the equilibrium in the family and to keep the status quo. And let's be real, nobody's perfect. Nobody's ever going to be perfect. So trying to be perfect is exhausting. I had a client one time who told me she had a complete meltdown when she felt like she was failing at everything in life. You know, she remembers she was in high school, she was struggling to keep up with her grades and extracurricular activities and social life on top of that, and trying to be a good role model for all of her siblings. It was just all too much. And then she said something inside of her clicked. She realized she didn't want to be perfect. She just had to be her. She finally understood she didn't have to have all the answers. She didn't have to know everything. She just had to be willing to experience life the way everyone else is experiencing it. And she had to be willing to learn and to try something new and to let go of what no longer works and to do the scared thing, you know, to take the risk. She didn't have to be in control all the time. She had to be willing to just be, to let it go, and to know that Earth would continue spinning if she did. And that realization was a huge game changer, because when you come into that awareness, it allows you to let go of the pressures to be perfect, which means that you're no longer focused on your flaws. You can actually be yourself. You can be real. And that's actually when you start manifesting the life of your dreams, because manifestation does not work when you're not in your most authentic energy. Being the oldest girl in the family can be tough. It can also be an incredible opportunity to grow, to learn, to strive. So if you're an oldest girl, you know, don't be afraid to take on the challenges that come with your role. Embrace them and let them shape you into the strong, confident, and independent woman that you're meant to be. If you're not an oldest or only girl, don't worry, you can still learn from their experiences, because at the end of the day, being the oldest or only girl is not just about your position in the family, right? It's about being a leader, a role model, a strong, capable person. So what do you think of this story? If you're an oldest or only, I would love to hear what your experience has been in the comment below. You know, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced and how did you overcome them? And if you want to check out more videos like this one, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Intuitive Healing. Hit the notification bell. I post new content every week, and I'll love to have you along for the ride. Being the oldest girl is the dramatic position in the family, baby. So you just need to embrace it. It's filled with a lot of whirlwind. It's a wild ride, lots of twists and turns, and more than a few tantrums, and a lot of nobody else understands because they don't, and they don't want to, and they're never going to be as responsible as you. And yeah, you're going to be expected to keep your cool no matter what because you're the oldest, so you figure it out. And through all of that, hopefully you've learned that it's not just about being a role model or a caretaker of your siblings. It's about being strong, being independent, and being so driven, so bold, so headstrong that you're not willing to stop at anything to get exactly what you want.